First time poster, so please forgive any errors. I just recently heard of Let's Not Meet, and I'm so happy that there's a place to tell our stories. I'm not sure if I'm the norm or not, but many scary, weird things have happened to me. This is just the most recent of them. Let me start with, I was diagnosed with agoraphobia about 3 years prior to the story. So while this may not seem very scary to many people, it was for me. And yes, I do take medication for my panic attacks, for when I must leave the house, or someone unknown needs to come. I did take my pill. Often before the onset of an attack, the back of my neck becomes really hot. You can feel the heat coming off of it way before contacting skin. This is relative to the story. It was the beginning of another Texas summer heat wave many years ago, when we started having several issues with our cable service. I called and arranged for a repair person to come by the house again. We had had 3 to 4 previous people come out to try to fix our issues, but those fixes really never stayed fixed. So, the day arrives that the repair person is supposed to show up. I'm a bit anxious as always and expecting someone, but my college-age son was home sleeping and I felt pretty okay. So the dogs start barking, and I know the repair person has arrived, and I go to the front door and look out the small window in the door to see the white van with the cable company's name. I wait at the door for them to approach, which takes about 10 minutes or so. I figured he was on the phone or doing some paperwork for his job, etc. He comes to the door and knocks. I open the front door, and he holds up his company ID and tells me his name. It matches, and I unlock the screen door and let him in. I show him the 3 rooms that are having issues, which does not include my son's room, and he seems friendly and makes small talk as I finally lead him around to the back family room and ask him to wait there so I can put the dogs outside. He does, and I tell him it's okay, but he doesn't enter, and I finally go to the front of the house to see if he had heard me. As I turn the corner of the kitchen, he sees me and starts to kind of smile shyly a little bit, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, maybe he was just snooping in the bookshelves or something. At this point, I'm not really scared, just thinking he's a bit kooky. But I do notice that the foyer window blinds are swaying a little bit. But we have cats, so it didn't really catch my full attention. So I point to the kitchen, this time following him back to the family room, and he checks out the outlet and says he needs to grab another bag from his van, and heads to the front of the house and out the front door. I clean a couple of dishes and load them into the dishwasher while waiting. He returns with a brown leather bag, very much like an old doctor's bag, and starts working on the outlet in the living room right off the front side of the kitchen, and I move into the family room and straighten up a little bit, as a recliner and a coffee table had to be moved at angles so it could reach the cable outlet. I wasn't in there maybe 2 minutes when he sauntered into the family room with his brown bag. It was like a switch had gone off. His demeanor was very different. He seemed, well, no other way to say it, very proud of himself. I quirked an eyebrow and asked him if he'd already finished the living room, and he smiled very big and nodded, saying, "I'm quick like that, when I want to be." As he's speaking, he's walking directly and purposefully straight at me. I was trying to back up out of his way, but the coffee table was behind me, so I just kind of slid into the recliner before he walked into me. He grinned. Again, no other word comes to mind other than wicked. He sets his unopened bag on the table, which kind of made me mad, but I was getting more nervous now and starting to feel really warm. I also noticed the normal tool belt most of these guys wear is where he's getting his parts and tools from. He continued to smile as he knelt and removed the old outlet, stood up, dug around for more stuff in his belt, the whole time facing me directly. I began to fan myself with my hands. My face was getting warm, and he laughed and asked, "Do I make you nervous?" He reached down and moved his bag closer to him, but still didn't open it. I just kind of half smiled, and was fixing to get up and move in front of the recliner and sat on the edge of the coffee table, and leaned in and asking, "Are you alright? Do you need a glass of water or something?" leering at me. I shook my head and said, "No, it's fine, just kind of hot in here." He set down the cable wire and crimping tool he was holding, and started waving his hands as if he was fanning me. He half stood up, leaning over me, and was fanning the back of my neck. I leaned to the side away from him and said, "No, it's really fine," and started to try to slide out of the recliner. He put his hands on my shoulders and said, "No, you shouldn't get up. You might pass out." I was scared now. This guy had actually touched me and forced me back into a sitting position. I thought about yelling for my son, but then I thought, what if he'd already been in my son's room, or did something to his door or something when he was at the front of the house? I totally freaked in the head. All these scenarios were screaming in my head to do something. But I just froze sure that if I screamed out for my son, the guy would kill us both. So I just sat there, trying to figure out what to do without alerting him that I was scared. I pulled the top of my shirt near the collar to my face, which was now profusely sweating, and wiped my cheeks. His hand snaked out and grabbed the front of my collar as he pulled it towards himself. He bent down and started blowing into my shirt. His face was practically buried inside my shirt. I pulled back and was somehow now basically squatting in the recliner facing to the side, and he's just standing there smiling at me and says, "It's okay. It's okay." He picks up the cable and finishes crimping the end on the cable and backs up to the wall, still totally facing me. He screws the plate on the cable and looks away momentarily, I mean like 2 seconds, to place the screws in the plate in the wall, then just keeps staring and smiling at me like it was some kind of role-playing game, and I was his girlfriend customer. As he screwed the plate into the wall, the whole time, I'm still squatting in the recliner, shaking so badly, the whole thing was actually rocking. I'm mentally trying to prepare myself for a fight. He straightened up, having finished screwing it into the plate to the wall, and takes 2 steps, still holding the crimping tool. While these were not large or heavy tools, they could do some damage if you were to catch them between the pinchers. I couldn't keep my eyes from switching back and forth between his right hand and reaching for his bag, and his left, now holding the tools. I was just starting to raise up. I guess I was going to try to tackle him or something. I'm not really sure. All I could think was that I couldn't let him find out where my son was. Just then, my 100-pound rot/chow mix dog, Lily, decided that she was tired of being outside, and as her normal attitude, she slammed her paws against the back door, not 3 feet away, which always makes the windows shake and rattle like an earthquake or tornado was coming. This suddenly very loud noise made us both jump, and I stepped out the recliner and was at the door in a millisecond. He started to move towards me, but his eyes shot to my hand on the deadbolt, turning it. The click was so loud that it was like lightning had struck in the backyard. He laughed, actually friggin' laughed, and grabbed his bag off the coffee table and, walking sideways, moved past me into the kitchen, and seconds later I heard the front door slam open, and then the screen door slam open and close. I let the 3 dogs in, Lily and Chica, Pitbull mix, and Helix, our little corgi. They all ran straight to the front room, and were barking and jumping on the screen door. I knew it was safe because Lily did not like men very much unless they were introduced to her. I went in the living room and actually noticed the blinds, the ones that were swaying when I came to find him, that I had pushed open earlier this morning, were actually closed now. And I rushed to lock the screen and front door, and then I called my husband at work. I could barely talk, but he rushed home and called the police. Here's the worst part. They came and took my statement and asked a bunch of questions, had to detail everything that happened, and then asked if I was on any meds or had any medical issues. I was still shaking and sweating badly, but I told them that I was agoraphobic and took medication for it. Then the cops looked at each other, closed the notebook, and they both stood up and said I could get a police report in about a week, and if we had any other issues that we could call 911. And then they left. Here's the best part. We called the cable company and talked to a supervisor. He was there with a different police officer of some kind in like 45 minutes. They brought a photo lineup of like 8 guys on it and asked me if I could pick out the guy and set the paper on the table. Before the officer could finish saying, "Take your time," I had already pointed out the guy. I told them again what had transpired, and they thanked us and apologized over and over during the course of the conversation, and said that they would investigate it and would contact us as soon as they concluded it. The next morning, I got a call from the supervisor. He told me they had pulled the guy from any remaining jobs that day and just completed their investigation, and then had informed him that he no longer had a job, and that this incident was part of his work record. So, scary cable repairman, let's not meet again.